Today we are comparing two fragrances, the new PDM Perseus versus Terre D'Hermes Eau de Toilette. So when I did my first impressions of Perseus a couple of months ago, I said in the video that straight away I got a similar vibe that you get from Terre D'Hermes. Now, as I've had Perseus for a couple of months now and I wear it quite regularly, which we'll get into as well in this video, but now I'm starting to realise that there are a lot of differences between these two fragrances, and you shouldn't be worried about Perseus being very similar to Terre D'Hermes, at least the original anyway. This is the original that we're looking at today. So this is the original Terre D'Hermes Eau de Toilette. One of the most popular and best-selling designer fragrances of all time, I would say. Been out a long time. I think it came out in the 90s, but it's been around for many years and it's still sold, probably still selling very well today. As well as being one of the most famous and recognised fragrances in the industry, it's also one of the most divisive because it has a very strong note of vetiver. Vetiver is a hard note to get along with, depending on how it is blended and how it's made, what kind of vetiver is being used in the fragrance. But in Terre D'Hermes, the original, it is a sharp, green, punchy vetiver that makes you feel like you're sitting in a beautiful countryside garden. But because of the vetiver note that's quite strong, earthy and green, it can be quite divisive, and a lot of younger people might not like the note too much. So how does Terre D'Hermes smell? Well, it does smell very sharp in the opening. You have this kind of bitter orange smell, almost like orange peel, mixed with a lot of pepper. I get a lot of black pepper in here. I have a black pepper essential oil as part of my perfume making kit, and it's a very distinctive note when you smell it, and you can really pick it up in here. So it's quite peppery, it's sharp, mixed with this bitter orange, but then the main or the most important component is this kind of earthy green vetiver, which you experience very soon after spraying, and it goes all the way into the dry down as well. Now, I feel like Terre D'Hermes is not really suited for the younger crowd. I think anyone under the age of 25, that kind of age, are not going to really appreciate Terre D'Hermes. Now, this is a generalization. Of course, a lot of younger people would enjoy this, and I'm sure they like it and wear it. But just a generalization, I think a lot of people under the age of 25 would not really appreciate this and might look for something slightly more modern. I think Terre D'Hermes suits a confident, older, more mature man, someone who has already experienced a lot in their life, someone who holds themselves well, someone who dresses well. That's how this smells to me. It smells confident and professional. I think it's a really nice fragrance. I'm on the side of the people that like Terre D'Hermes. I think it's a great fragrance. I don't wear it all that much, to be honest with you. I mean, the bottle is almost empty, but most of that is from selling samples on my fragrance sample website, visionaryfragrances.com. But I do wear it occasionally, and when I do wear it, I really enjoy it. Now, the performance is very good as well, especially for an eau de toilette. I get decent performance from Terre D'Hermes. Now, one thing you need to remember that in the far dry down, you're mainly going to get this kind of green, woody earthiness that will remind you of walking amongst nature. That's what I get from this: earthy, green, and woody. So moving on to Perseus. This is the newest release from Parfums de Marly. So Perseus, the opening is where it is, I would say, most similar to Terre D'Hermes, because you get the woodiness, you get this kind of, you get the woodiness, you get a grapefruit note, and you get vetiver, but it's nowhere near as pronounced or as green or earthy as it is in Terre D'Hermes. But you can certainly see that the fragrance DNA is similar. They are made in a certain way with similar types of ingredients. So for example, like a grapefruit opening, a bitter fruit. It's not juicy, it's quite bitter and vibrant. You then have dry woods and a touch of vetiver. So they are quite similar, especially in the opening. But I find as it dries down, it goes in a very different direction than Terre D'Hermes. So I find Perseus to be much more modern. It's modern, it's clean, it has a dryness to it, like has this dry wood feel, and there is a lot of ambroxan in Perseus. Now, ambroxan is a fragrance raw material, and it comes in like a powder form. So this is a little bottle of ambroxan. And how does ambroxan smell? Well, it smells quite velvety, it's ambery. I mean, some people say it smells animalic, but I don't really get animalic. It is ambery for sure. There's like a touch of sweetness. but it's quite airy almost. It's quite airy and maybe a little bit dry. But when you smell ambroxan and then you smell it in fragrances, it's a fragrance note that's quite easy to identify. And it tends to be the note that stays on your skin the longest. So after the dry down happens and you're left with just the remainder, like skin scent, if you like, that is mainly going to be ambroxan if the fragrance has it in a decent amount. So after the kind of dry down happens, it's a different experience entirely for me. It doesn't really remind me of Terre D'Hermes at all once the kind of sharp grapefruit and vetiver note has faded away. So the vetiver in Terre D'Hermes is really strong and punchy. The vetiver note in here is really soft, and I don't think it's been used in as high quantity as it's been used in Terre D'Hermes. So who is this for then? Who is Perseus for? I think it's actually could be worn in a similar way to Terre D'Hermes. It's still for a confident kind of professional person, I would say. It does lean a bit more youthful as well. Not that it's a youthful smelling fragrance, but I think because it's more modern than Terre D'Hermes, if you are younger and you think that Terre D'Hermes smells too kind of vintage or old school for you, I don't think you would have that experience or that opinion with Perseus. I think it can be worn by any age group, but I still think it works great as a versatile signature fragrance. So how does the performance compare between these two fragrances? As I said, Terre D'Hermes has decent performance for an eau de toilette, but it's nothing spectacular. It's nothing that really blows me away, but it's an averagely good performance for an eau de toilette. Perseus, on the other hand, lasts a long time on my skin. Whilst the projection might not be a beast mode, at least on my skin, I find that the ambroxan note and the dry wood, so ambroxan and dry woods, last on my skin for a very long time. Now, 2 days ago, I was testing these fragrances for this video, as I do, I'm a professional, and I sprayed this on one hand and this on the other hand. About 3 hours after I sprayed them, I went for a run. I sweat a lot when I'm running, especially it was quite warm, about 20 degrees. I really sweat a lot, and on my hands, fragrances tend to come off quite easily because you wash your hands, you're always touching things. But the Terre D'Hermes faded away, and after my run, I could barely smell anything. Now, Perseus, on the other hand, I could smell it really clearly after my run still. So or even after sweating a lot, washing my hands, just generally doing things all day with my hands, I still smelt Perseus for a very long time after I sprayed it. And as I said, ambroxan in the fragrances, ambroxan, that raw material, lasts a very long time, at least on me. It really latches onto my skin, and I smelt it for a long time when wearing Perseus. Now, another thing I love about Perseus is it's quite addictive smelling. I keep wanting to wear it, you know, especially now we're coming into the summer almost, you know, it's almost June, we're coming into the warmer months, and it's where I live, it is actually quite nice now. It's been nice for a few weeks. So I always reach for the fresh fragrances. Of course, I wear Imagination a lot. I love that fragrance, as you know, but I'm also picking up Perseus a lot, you know, when I just want a casual fragrance to do daily chores with, when I don't want to think too much about it, I just want to smell good, but I want it to last all day. Perseus is a fragrance that I'm honestly picking up quite a lot. Now, I wanted to clarify something. I'm not in any way sponsored by Parfums de Marly at all. I've never had any communication with them whatsoever. I bought Perseus, I bought 2 bottles from their website when it was released, paid full price for it. So I'm in no obligation or position or anything to say anything good about their fragrances. This is just my personal opinion of what I think of Perseus. So I hope this video helps you decide which one you should buy. I don't recommend blind buying any fragrances at the moment. You know, fragrances now, even the designer fragrances, are creeping up towards over £100 a bottle. I would recommend sampling everything. Of course, you can find samples of these fragrances, plus hundreds of others on visionaryfragrances.com. Let me know, have you tried Perseus? And what did you think? See you soon.